Welcome back to Prospect Analytics. It is our favorite time of the year as Bowman Baseball is set to release next week. Hopefully you got those pre-orders in. I got a jumbo box coming in. I'll probably rip it live on stream, maybe make it a podcast episode. But before you open anything, you want to make sure you know who you are chasing. And that's why I'm going to do my own articles, which I do for all three Bowman releases. They're some of my favorite articles to do of the year. Now they are a grind, so I haven't gotten them out yet, but I should have the hitters out this week. I'm going to give you a top 20, maybe some sleepers, some names to watch when you're buying singles, when you're entering breaks, when you're opening your own boxes of 2026 Bowman. And this is a great week to join the website if you haven't already. Again, it's www.prospect-analytics.com. Not only are my top 20 chases for 2026 Bowman going to be released either at the end of this week or early next week, but I'm also doing my first in-season full re-rank of my prospects. And the top 200 hitters are going to be out this Friday. There are some big movements and some names that you're going to want to be on the lookout for. The re-rank of the top 100 pitchers will come out next Friday. So it's a great time to join if you haven't already. So you get that Bowman chase. You know who to be looking for in that new product, and you get the most up-to-date hobby rankings for your Bowman collection. Now, on top of these new product write-ups and updated rankings for the Bowman hobby, you also get our morning Bowman brew every single morning, which will tell you the top 10 hitters and pitchers, as long as a home run tracker only for the prospects with Bowman autographs from the day prior. Those go out every morning to our premium subscribers. Just another function of the site to help you stay ahead in the Bowman game. Now, another fun benefit of being a premium subscriber is that periodically I will ask for mailbag questions, and I will do a mailbag episode where I answer all of your Bowman questions. You can feel free to send them in to me. If you are a premium subscriber, I usually send out an email asking for questions. People send them back, all their Bowman questions, and I will come on an episode and answer them. And that is what we are going to do today. In between working on finishing my article for the top 20 hitters in 2026 Bowman, I'm going to take some of those questions that were sent in a couple of weeks ago and answer them for you here. Now, the first question I got when I asked for those mailbag questions came to us from Mike M. And he says, as somebody relatively new to Bowman prospecting just in the last 8 months, I am having a hard time figuring out the seasonal calendar buying cycle rules. Wait 90 days after a new product drops to buy singles for the price to stabilize, pick up prospects in the offseason, hold and sell right upon major level call-ups. Do you have any rules or insights for those of us that are trying to kind of plan out their best buying and selling cadence for approaching prospecting? Right now, it feels like I'm trying to buy fun prospects that are performing at the same time as everyone else and not able to really find any value in the market, but I might just be impatient. Now, this is a tricky question. I don't know that there's an exact answer to this. I can tell you what I do personally. Most of my buying I do in the off season. Now, Bowman Chrome usually comes out in September. By that point, we are at the end of the minor league season. So Bowman Chrome and Bowman Draft, which comes out in December, sometimes January, are usually both in the off season. That is the best time to buy, in my opinion. That is the best time to grade cards, in my opinion, because the last thing that I want would be for you to send off a card to get graded. A player's stock goes through the roof, and you're sitting there just waiting for those PSA orders to pop because your card's gone up 100%. You want to sell it, you don't have it in your hand. It's literally the worst feeling in the world. So I do a lot of my buying and grading in the off season, and that's kind of the main benefit of doing the team buy sheets that I do during the off season, is to give you really a list of which prospects I like going into the season, whose stock I think can pop early on in these months, early April. That way you already have the players' cards in hand when their stock goes up. We've already seen a lot of success so far in the first month of the season. As far as buying during the season, that's the tricky part. That's why I try to put out the hot sheets. I would say there's not really an exact science to it. The hardest part is going to be with the release of 2026 Bowman. I kind of explained it last year when I did my 2025 Bowman write-up. Now, because Bowman is the only one of the three main releases that comes out during the season, it makes buying singles very tricky, because in the other releases, as you said, you can wait a month, you can wait 2 months, because you know that the prices of singles aren't going to go up because the players aren't playing games. There's nothing really driving the hype. Right now, we're in the heart of the season. There's going to be players who come out and you're going to say, I'm going to wait a little bit until these release prices cool down, and the player's just going to keep playing better and his price is going to keep going up. There's always a couple of those. Kevin McGonigle was a huge example last year. Eduardo Quintero was an example last year. JJ Weatherholt. A lot of these guys just get hot at the the right time. You don't have that window to wait for the prices to come down, which kind of makes Bowman tricky. So you're going to want to read those 2026 Bowman chase rankings when I put them out, because that is the order that I would be chasing guys. I try not to overreact to guys who get hot during the week of release, which is going to happen, and you're going to see those cards go up. I'd stick to the rankings. On top of the rankings, I'm also working on a target value price, which I've been working on for the last couple of weeks. It hasn't been perfected yet, but I'm getting very close on the formula. And essentially, based on a player's hobby ranking, I can infer what I think their base autograph should be worth. That will come in handy for the 2026 Bowman rankings, because a lot of these guys will come out and their first base autograph will sell for $200, $300. I will tell you based on where I have them ranked if I think that it will settle as a $50 autograph, $60 autograph. That way you kind of know when the cards come out, hey, this guy's a lot cheaper than the ranking show he should be, or this guy's more expensive. I might have time to let that kind of cool down. So I think that target price, when I add that to the rankings, that will give you an even better idea of when to buy. In the offseason, many guys are below their target price, which is what kind of gives us the best buying opportunities. And then, yeah, in season, it's honestly really tricky. It's funny because when I do the hot sheets, you'll see guys who make 4, 5, 6 consecutive appearances and their card price hasn't moved $1. You see other guys who have one good week and the card price doubles. So my one piece of advice for buying in season is do not get FOMO. I mentioned in the Discord in February that Anthony Ianson stock might go through the roof. Thanks to shout out, Andrew Parker from Sox Prospects told us that might be the case. A lot of people bought Anthony Ianson cards after I posted about it in the Discord. Those people are up 700% on their cards right now. Do you know how many dollars worth of Anthony Ianson cards I own? 0. Do you know how many I'm going to buy, even though I'm probably going to move him into my top 10 pitchers? 0. I would say don't get FOMO is my biggest piece of buying advice during the season. If you believe in a prospect, even if he hasn't broken out yet, buy him now, use the rankings, trust your gut. If a player puts together a couple of hot weeks and his price goes up 200%, do not say, oh man, I missed the boat. I got to get some of his cards before they go up nowhere. Unless you believe that player is so good, they will continue to go up. I try not to have FOMO. If I miss the boat on a guy and his price spikes and I no longer see value, just don't buy. You will thank yourself in the long run because you won't end up buying at the peak and then watching those cards fall back down to earth. So the long and short answer of when to buy, off season is usually the best time. If you're buying hot prospects during the season, just make sure that they are still priced well based on where they are ranked, and do not have FOMO and dump a bunch of money into a player after his price has gone up considerably. There are tons of prospects that are undervalued and playing well and not seeing their card prices go up. I would attack those areas first. And if it's a player, like you said, where you go to buy him and you realize everybody else is buying them and you can't get a good price, I would say just walk away. All right, next question comes to us from Charlie. Charlie says, I struggle with knowing the best time to profit off of stashes. While there's no right answer, is there some guidance based on their level? For example, Johnny level, no pun intended on the level. Hype is high, but is it too early? Or surprises like Jurwa, where they're getting a bunch of attention despite being in high A? Another great question. Obviously, the call-up is the time that we're waiting for to sell off most of our stuff. But I've also said in the past, anytime a player's card price goes up 100%, I have no problem. A lot of people have diamond hands. I'm the first to admit to you, I have paper hands. When my cards double, my bottom cards, gone. Are they still going up in value? Am I an idiot? Maybe. It never hurts to take your money. As you said, Johnny level, I think he was $30 on the Giants buy sheet this offseason. He went up to, I think I saw an $80 sale the other day. If you want to take your 100+%, fine with me, cash out. As far as what level they're at, I don't think that there's necessarily a right answer. I do think the players at the lower levels typically see the biggest jumps. As you said, Johnny level, a guy comes out in high A and he's young for the level and he plays well, or he's in single A and he plays well. Those prices tend to spike. Even with like the pitchers we saw in draft, Riley Quick was on a bunch of hot sheets. Even if they're college arms and they're in A and high A, and it's not like they're young for the level, if they perform well, those card prices will go up. Now, when you get to AA and AAA, I do feel like those jumps in price do become a little bit stagnant. It's almost like everybody knows that the call-up is the day. And now we've gotten to the point where when a player gets called up, sometimes the prices don't even spike. I haven't made it official, but I'm almost in the camp now where I don't know that I even want to own AAA hitters. The perfect example of this that we saw this year is James Tibbs of the Dodgers. He had the best start to the season that we saw. His OPS, he was on all the hot sheets. His card prices went through the roof. Well, now he's still in AAA, and now he's come back down to earth. He's still playing well, but he's playing average. I don't know that he ever recaptures that hype that we saw in the first week of the season when everyone was like, did you see James Tibbs hit 5 home runs in a week? That was probably the time to sell. I know a lot of people with his cards are like, come on, Dodgers, call him up. We want that call up spike. sometimes the call-up spike isn't there. Connor Griffin is another example. His card price spiked when he had a 2-home run game against the Red Sox in spring training. That base autograph price, the sales of his base autograph that day were higher than the day they were when he got called up to make his major league debut. It's more about capturing the hype, and the longer that a guy sits in the upper levels of the minor leagues, his hype dies. It's just natural what happens. After updating my rankings on a weekly basis and updating all of the prices via Prospect Pulse, shout out Prospect Pulse, I've come to find a trend where AAA seems to be kind of a dead zone for the hobby. And one of the things that you have going for you at the lower levels is that you can get promoted exponentially faster. You know, a guy's in single A and he gets hot and you see him go, you know, single A, high A, double A, triple A. Quinn Matthews is an example, 4 levels in 1 year in his debut season. When you do stuff like that, your card price exponentially can go up. If you get to triple A, the major league roster doesn't have an opening, you get stuck in AAA. Even if you're hitting well, you get stuck in AAA for 3, 4, 5 months. How much people care about you in the card world starts to go down no matter how well you're playing. So I do say that the biggest jumps you probably see are in single A, high A, in those lower levels. And yeah, with a guy like Johnny Level, you bought him at $30. He's up at 80. When do you see him get over 100? What level is that at? You don't really know. It might not even be this year. So for that reason, I do like selling after some of these hot starts to the season. You never know what's going to happen. You don't know that anybody is going to be able to sustain the hype that they have while they're hot right now. So I don't think there's necessarily a level I would sell at. For hitters, the second they get hot in AAA is usually a good indicator that you should be selling. As I said, you don't want to get stuck with their cards while they rot away in AAA. But yeah, I would watch those early promotions, single A to high A to double A. Anytime you see a price spike, probably not a bad time to jump out, especially if you're already up over 100% on the player. The next question comes to us from PK, and he says, where does Sapphire rate in graded Bowman first versus true colors? Obviously, Sapphy is much more expensive, but that price pays for the better odds of hitting based on limited supply. Yeah, Sapphire is a tricky one. Honestly, I don't open much Sapphire. I know people love it. You only get one autograph, which is a killer for me, but the non-autograph color does sell really well, and you're guaranteed at least a few of those in a box. So it does help the floor of a product, because those first, you get first non-auto oranges pretty regularly in Sapphire, and those do sell well if you hit a top name. Along with that, the autograph checklist is less watered down. There's usually way less names on the autograph checklist of a Sapphire product than a regular version of that product. So usually Topps does a good job of weeding out some of the lower end names on the autograph checklist to make sure that if you're paying for Sapphire, that you're hitting a pretty decent autograph. As far as where it sells in comparison to True Color, if you go over to prospectpulsev1.com, our good friend Dahl actually has a checklist feature. You can go to every checklist from every year that he has on file. I think it goes back to 2018, Chrome, regular Bowman, and draft. You can click on individual checklists. He has charted all of the sales for every parallel from every Bowman checklist. It's incredible. And it'll actually give you multipliers for every parallel based on actual sales from eBay. And he has added Sapphire to those. I can tell you that we'll look at 2025 Bowman draft, for example. It's the most recent one. The Sapphire autograph out of 199 currently has a multiplier of 3.4x. So you see a 2.3x in a refractor, 2.6 in a purple, and then 3 in an aqua lava. So Sapphire is actually above all of those. It looks like the closest comparison would be a green lava out of 99 and a blue wave out of 150. Those are both about 3x to 3.7x. So the base Sapphire autograph does sell well. He's got 519 charted sales on here of 33 different players from 2025 Bowman draft. And the Sapphire out of 199 auto does sell for more than your standard refractor, which is a little bit surprising, but based on the print run and the fact that people do like Sapphire, it's not that surprising, I guess. When you get into the greens, the green Sapphire out of 99 is a 4.4x. Now, when you compare that to the same print run from a non-Sapphire product, the true green is a 4.2x, and the green lava is currently a 3.7x. So green Sapphire outperforms regular green and green lava. Taking it a step further to the golds, right now for 2025 Bowman draft, he has 667 different sales of true gold autographs from 2025 Bowman draft. True Gold currently has a 13.0 multiplier. Gold Wave has an 8.1 multiplier. Gold Shimmer has an 8.5 multiplier. None of those are really that surprising. Gold Sapphire is 10.4. So Gold Sapphire actually is trading closer to True Gold than it is to Gold Shimmer and Gold Wave, which is really interesting. And that's a trend that you see up into orange as well. Orange Wave currently 15.1x. True Orange 21.9x, Orange Sapphire, right about in the middle at 17.8x. So that is kind of your answer for when you get into the colors. Now it looks like with green, the Sapphire actually outperforms the true. True green's not really a thing. There's not really a true green. But when you get up into more of the true colors, the gold, the orange, it looks like for the most part, according to Prospect Pulse's multipliers, the Sapphire autograph tends to fall somewhere in between the true color and then the shimmers and the waves. And again, he's got hundreds and thousands of data points for these. So I guess you can use that if you're having a hard time finding a comp for a card. If you're looking at a gold Sapphire autograph and there are gold shimmer, gold wave comps, there are true gold comps, I would say go somewhere in the middle because it looks like based on past sales, that is about where they fall. Next question comes to us from Benjamin, who says, how do you figure out when to buy raw versus graded? I know you shouldn't expect to be able to grade most raw, especially if older than a year or so, cards, but there are often better deals on raw cards as opposed to PSA 10s. Are you comfortable just flipping raw in whatever condition it comes in? Any guidance on this would be great. I'm 100% okay with it. I always tell people, I don't think that there's a right or wrong answer. You buy the best deal that you can get. I will look for a PSA 10 when it's reasonable, but a lot of times on eBay, people know, especially when you get into the true colors, true blues, true golds, those PSA 10s are listed through the roof. People are not willing to negotiate as much as they are on raw cards. I will take wherever I find the best deal. I think that you can flip raw cards just as easily as you can flip graded cards. Now, ideally, if you're looking for the huge dollar amount gains, PSA 10s is a way to go. The only advice I would give on those is try to stay away from PSA 9s unless it's a very low serial numbered card. The fact of the matter is that most people buying raw cards think that they can gem anything, whether they can or not. We get a lot of raw cards, especially off eBay, in bad condition. In my experience, PSA 9s are the hardest to move in Bowman, especially when you're in like refractors and kind of the color that's like not that exciting, purple, refractor, anything that's like higher numbered. People generally stay away from the 9s. They would rather have the raw card. They'd rather hold the raw card. Maybe they want to grade it, whatever. It just is easier to flip. The raw cards outsell the 9s pretty regularly. Now, the only time that changes for me is when you get into the low serial numbered cards. If I go onto eBay to look for a player and I find a true gold auto or a true orange auto and it's in a PSA 9, I will buy it. There's something about the print run that has to do with the grade that really just changes things for me. When you get up into rare cards, when you're looking at reds, there's 5 copies. Do you want that to be a PSA 10? Will it be worth more as a PSA 10? Absolutely. But if someone's buying a card because there's only 5 copies of it, at that point, you're buying the rarity of the card more than you're buying the condition of the card, if that makes sense. At least that's the way I always view it. Whereas Refractor, 499 copies, what sets them apart is which ones are in the best condition. When you get up into gold, orange, if I see a player I love and it's a true gold, PSA 9, I will buy it. Those cards are not that hard to move. Even the true blues you can move in a 9, but people still will prefer the raws over the PSA 9s a lot of times. So I would say for the most part, if it's numbered higher than a gold, if it's green, blue, purple, refractor, yellow, I would try to go raw over PSA 9. Obviously, PSA 10 is always the king, but if you can't find a PSA 10, I have no problem holding a raw. You can flip those raw cards just as easily. I have absolutely no problem buying raw cards, holding them raw, and then selling them later down the road. The next question comes to us from Jay Fogues. He says, love being alongside your content to start the year. Hot sheet day, maybe my new favorite day of the week. Anyways, few questions. Feel free to interpret the last two in a different manner if none of those guys are a sell to you. When you are evaluating hitters, what are some of the key indicators for success that you are hoping to find a prospect in coming from college, and how do prep bats differ? I mean, I would say that 2 of the biggest differences are probably in the approach or the contact and the power. Those are 2 things that are very different for me when I look at high school prospects and college hitters. Now, while college hitters aren't done developing, they have much less development to go before they reach the major league level than a high school hitter. So if a high school hitter comes in with tools, he's got really good power, he's got really good speed, but a very shaky hit tool, I am way more likely to take a chance on that hitter being 18 years old and having him develop. He's getting professional instruction for the next time. Who knows what could have been in his swing mechanics that are causing these hit tool concerns at the same time as the power. If you're a high school hitter and you come in with a very solid approach, very solid contact skills, but you're not a power hitter, you can also fall back on the fact that he might just not have power because he's 18, 19 years old. Kevin McGonigle is a perfect example of someone who, when his cards came out, everyone said, well, he's a great hitter, but he's never never going to be a power hitter. Then all of a sudden he comes back at age 20 and he hits 20 home runs in a year. And you're like, where'd that come from? Well, he was a child when you were first evaluating him. You don't really know what that body's going to look like fully matured. Whereas college hitters kind of come out and you kind of have more of an idea of who they're going to be as a player. I would say for college hitters that way, it's the opposite. If they come out of college and they didn't show power the whole time they were in college, that makes me a little bit worried about how much power they're going to hit for as a professional. And at the same time with the contact, if you come out of college and you had twice as many strikeouts as walks in college, I'm immediately going to be very worried about you as a prospect. I'm not going to trust your hit tool that much because while you might have gotten away with hitting college pitching, being an aggressive swinger, you will get eaten up by upper level pitching if you are that aggressive. And if you've already shown 25, 26% strikeout rates against college pitchers, then I would tend to say that I don't feel great about what that hit tool might look against professional pitching. Also, I'm not the one buying all of these guys, but the hobby has decided over the years that high school prep bats are infinitely more exciting than college bats. That's just the way that it is. They want the 18-year-old. I mean, look at what Jason Dominguez, his Superfractor auto, sold for what? $500,000? High school prospects, definitely, but even more so with international prospects. These guys get signed at 16 years old, and all you see on the scouting report is, plus power, plus speed. This could be the next Mickey Mantle. The hype that builds in these players before we've even seen them play in the States is crazy. That is what drives the price of the cards. Good college hitters, it sounds crazy to say, but if you're a good college hitter and you're proven, that's not that exciting because everyone kind of knows what you are. Everyone would much rather take the chance on this teenage kid with these crazy tools and hope that it all comes together. I think it's infinitely harder to be a college hitter and be respected by the hobby. When 2024 Bowman draft came out, everyone kind of knocked the product because they were like, well, it's boring because it's all college hitters. A lot of it too is the age versus level. These college guys, some of them come out of college and they're in single A or they're in high A. So that makes it a little bit tougher because even if they hit that pitching, you're like, well, they're playing against players that are 3 years younger than them. So it really is tough. I would say for college hitters, I'm mostly looking at, something like swinging strike percentage, in zone contact rates. For most of them, we know what their power and their speed and all that stuff is when they came out of college, especially if they're playing at big time programs. We've been watching them for the last 4 years. We kind of know what the tools are. I would look at like a swinging strike percentage, an in zone contact rate, see how they're adjusting to professional pitching. But on the flip side, with high schoolers, we're evaluating the tools. We want the power, we want the speed. So seeing a guy who's young, especially young for that level, show high end power or steal a bunch of bases early on is usually an indicator that he is going to have a lot of hobby success. It really kind of becomes a floor versus ceiling conversation. Some people are more likely to invest in players that have a safe floor because they don't want to lose all their money. Some people don't mind going for those lottery tickets, which are the prep bats, and hoping that they're the next, Ronald Acuna, Juan Soto. When you look at the guys who drive the hobby, you look at Acuna, you look at Soto, pretty much all of the big names except for maybe Judge, what they all have in common is that most of them were in the major leagues by the time they were 19, 20 years old. So coming out of college, you're already at a disadvantage because you're 22 years old. You're already old as far as most people who collect Bowman cards are concerned. So yeah, it really comes down to your investment strategy. College hitters, often much safer options, but high school hitters usually are the ones with the big ceiling, but you're more likely to lose all your money. College hitters, as I said, we're more likely to know kind of what the tools are. So I'd be looking more like a swinging strike percentage, in zone contact rate. Prep bats, we're looking at power. If you come out at 18 and your ISO's 200, that's immediately a ping that your cards could probably do some numbers, regardless of how shaky your hit tool looks. And then Jay Fogues also threw at me a little buy, hold, sell at this price. Luis Pena at $80, Elian Pena at $90, and Johnny Level at $65. I'll go buy on Luis Pena. I'm actually working on my re-rank. Luis Pena of the Brewers is going to be a top 10 hitting prospect for me. I love Luis Pena. I'll say buy Luis Pena at $80. Elian Pena at $90 is probably the hold. It seems crazy for a player who's only been in single A for a month, but being a Mets prospect and being a number one international signing is a huge, huge hobby ceiling. You don't know if he'll hit it, but I would say his upside is considerably higher than either of these two guys just because of who he is. $5 million signing bonus, plays for the Mets, that kind of stuff. The power is good. I would say hold on Elian Pena. And then as much as I love Johnny Level, probably a sell on Johnny Level. A lot of that has to do with smaller frame guy. Not sure if the power will continue as he climbs up to the higher levels of the minor leagues. Also, it was a $30 base auto this offseason. So if you bought then, you've already 2x'd your money. So that kind of makes him the sell in that group for me. And then another buy, hold, sell. Kyson Witherspoon, $32, Jonathan Santucci, $30, and Tanner Franklin, $34. I'm actually going to put them again, right in the order that you put them in. Kyson Witherspoon is a buy for me for a couple of reasons. Obviously, Anthony Ionson's price have gone through the roof. He looks like he's going to be a top 10 pitching prospect. Witherspoon has struggled a little bit more. His prices have come down as Ionson's have gone up. But one of my favorite things to buy in the hobby is pedigree. Kyson was looked at by money as a top 10 pitcher going into the start of this year. He also plays for the Red Sox, which makes his hobby ceiling considerably higher. He's a big name. I think that he probably has the most upside out of the three of these names, and for that reason, and he's off to a slower start. So I would say that while people are kind of like looking away and losing their faith in him, he's probably the best buy of the three. Santucci would be my hold. I love Jonathan Santucci. He is one of my favorite pitching prospects, very under the radar for the Mets. Again, Mets prospect. He has a chance of blowing up. I would say right around $30 where he is now. It kind of goes in line with where I'd have him ranked. So I would say he's a hold. And then not that I want to sell any of them, I would sell Tanner Franklin kind of for the same reason as Johnny Level. His price was half of what it was before he stepped on the field this year. He started hot. His price doubled. I think that immediately kind of makes you a sell. Not that I don't think he deserves to be $34, but after making 4 or 5 starts, you don't know how quickly that could turn. Maybe it was a couple hot starts. So I would say I would take the 2x on my money and probably sell Tanner Franklin of those three. Our next question is from Steven. He says, how should I think about selling players that have already made their MLB debuts in 2026? Specifically, I am thinking about Juan Brito and Daniel Susac. I have their autos for pretty cheap and have made a good return, but when is the right time to sell? Is it already too late? They are not in your weekly since they are not prospects any longer. Yeah, that's tough. There's kind of two ways to attack it. I usually say with hitters, sell the call up, but that is assuming that that player generates buzz when they get called up. You know, a lot of players, especially if it's a surprise call up, it's like a big name, top 100 prospect. Then you see that bump at call up. Guys like Brito and Susac probably didn't see a huge increase when they got called up. And for that reason, I do think that you were right to probably hold. You're way more likely to see a big jump if they were to debut and get hot. So no, I don't think it's too late. Obviously, Susac's on the IL now and Jesus Rodriguez is up. But I would say with the guys who are like that, whose base autograph was under $10, you bought them because you liked the minor league production or thought they'd be good big leaguers. They get called up. That base autograph still at $10. I do think that those are the type of players you can hold on to. And then you just got to wait for down the road. Maybe they have a hot week in the major leagues. They get a little bit of steam and their price goes up. But yeah, I would say that those are probably the type of players that I would be willing to hold past a call up because they don't really get the same hype as like a top 100 prospect. So no, I don't think you're in the wrong there. I think I would continue to hold on and just see if you get lucky and something pops. That's kind of the best way to approach those low dollar autographs, in my opinion. After that, we got a very similar question from Kurt who says, when a player makes his debut, do you sell every Bowman first you have at that time? Would there be any reason to hold? Kind of what I said in the last question would answer the question. If they're a player who doesn't generate a ton of hype, you're into this autograph for, you know, if it's a base autograph under $10, I would say that those are the players that are worth holding and hoping that, you know, their stock pops when they get to the MLB. But for most of the big names, I would say that you sell at the call up because that is when their hype is going to be at its peak for the most part. Now, second question, he says, would you have sold every McGonigle prior to game one, or is he someone that has so much potential as a Witt or Trout card type that you stash some? That's tough. I would have said to sell Kevin McGonigle. Obviously, I said before he debuted that he probably had a better chance of having a good first 200 plate appearances as a pro than Connor Griffin did because his approach and his contact were so sound. We kind of knew there's usually when there's a prospect, there's always a chance like this guy might not hit major league pitching. Kevin McGonigle is a rare player where I don't think anybody ever had a question that he was going to hit major league pitching. He is incredible. He is one of the best bat to ball hitters I've seen in the minor leagues in the last 5-6 years. So I'm not surprised that he's playing well. I still would have sold. It's just too risky. Roman Anthony was one of the first players that I made, 1,000% gains on, and I sold his cards when he got called up. Now, obviously, a lot of those cards continued to go up, and I was like, man, I should have held on to some of those Roman Anthonys. Now he's struggling. Those card prices are drastically coming back down. Jack Caglione was a great example last year. His base autograph went through the roof when he got called up. He struggled. It fell off a cliff immediately. I think for that reason, when it comes to big names, especially top 10 prospects like that, I would almost rather err on the side of caution. Is there a chance they end up being a Hall of Fame type player and I lose money on it? Yes. But at the same time, as you mentioned, Bobby Witt Jr. went 20-30 in his rookie year and his card prices still went down. It's really hard to maintain that hype. When you look at the guys who have, card values that are like worth holding in your collection for active players, the list is so short. It's like Trout, Ohtani, Judge, Soto. I mean, there's like Skeens. There's like 4 or 5 guys where you're like, this is the card that I want to be holding long term. A lot of them, even if they're really good players, will never get back to that point that they were during their biggest hype as a top 10 prospect. And for that reason, even like a player like McGonigle, where I had no doubts that he would be a good pro, I still personally would have sold when he got called up. And the last question coming to us from Daniel, he says, thanks for all that you do. What are the top handful of stats that you weigh most to compile your rankings? Now, there are a few of them for hitters. I would say if you go over to Fangraphs and you're looking up hitters, some of the ones that I would look at, obviously in-zone contact rates don't show. You can kind of infer them from the stats, but they won't show for a lot of the levels that don't have ABS. So you can really only see in-zone contact rates on Fangraphs from AAA hitters, but that's a good one. But I look a lot at contact rates. I look at swinging strike percentage, walk to strikeout ratio, and ISO. Those are kind of the big ones for me. I'm a big approach guy. Even when a player has a 300 ISO, if I look down, his contact rate is 60%. His walk to strikeout ratio is under 0.5. Immediately, I'm like, this is not an approach that is sustainable. It happens to a lot of guys. Now, it's not to say that those players won't work. A lot of them do have major league careers and are solid hitters, but it immediately kind of shies me away. So I would say anyone who has a good walk to strikeout ratio, a low swinging strike percentage, and a high ISO, that's a great trio because you're looking at a guy, he has a great approach, someone who's patient, low swing percentage, another good one. If they have a good approach, they're swinging and missing, say less than 10% of the time. So they're making good contact when they swing. They're very selective at what pitches they offer at, and they have a high ISO. That's kind of like the trifecta for me. If you're patient, you don't miss when you swing, and you hit the ball hard, I mean, what more can you want as a hitter? So that's kind of the ones I would be looking at in the advanced stats. Of course, WRC plus and WOBA, I would say though that those two translate the most to production. Like if you were to go to Fangraphs and sort hitters by who's been the best hitter, WOBA and WRC plus are probably the two stats that I would use the most to rank, like who's playing well. But as far as like scouting a player, looking at trends and stuff like that, I'm looking for a walk to strikeout ratio. I'm looking for a low swinging strike percentage, and I'm looking for a high ISO. That's kind of like the nice trio that I like to look at. Thanks again to everybody who sent in the questions. Had a great time. I'm going to send out another one of these soon so we can get in some more mailbag questions for a future episode. Until then, be on the lookout for my top 20 hitters to chase in 2026 Bowman. We'll have that along with my updated top 200 hitters for the hobby, both releasing this week. So now's a great time to go over to www.prospect-analytics.com and become a premium subscriber today. Thanks for listening to the Prospect Analytics podcast, and we'll see you next time.